The human named Marcus walked through the long shining hallway of the alien palace with quiet steps, his eyes fixed on the floor. He never looked left, never looked right, and never lifted his gaze when the alien princess was near. The guards noticed it. The servants noticed it. Even the tall statues seemed to notice it. Every time the princess entered the hall, Marcus turned his head away as if her eyes were made of fire. The palace whispered about it like a storm moving through. The walls that the alien princess Liara was graceful, calm, and born with the glowing royal markings that showed her bloodline. Every creature in the palace bowed when she passed. But Marcus did not bow. He only stepped aside and looked away. This made the guards angry. This made the nobles insult him quietly. This made the slaves smirk. But the princess did not speak. She only watched him with confused eyes because no one had ever avoided her before. Marcus was the only human allowed inside the royal palace. He worked silently, repaired things, cleaned old machines, and carried tools. The aliens did not understand him, but they tolerated him because the queen herself had allowed his presence. Still, every time the princess walked near him, he turned away like a shadow running from light. One morning, the guards saw it happen again. The princess walked down the staircase, her silver cloak flowing like liquid moonlight. Marcus was fixing a wall panel, but as soon as he sensed her presence, he stood up and turned his back. A heavy silence fell across the hall. The guards stared. The servants froze. Even the princess stopped walking. Why does he avoid her? One guard whispered, maybe humans fear beauty, another said. No, a third guard replied. Maybe he thinks she is weak. The rumor moved like fire. By evening, the whole palace was talking about it. Some said Marcus believed humans were superior. Some said he hated aliens. Some said he carried a secret insult against the royal family. But Marcus said nothing. He returned to his room, closed the door, and sat quietly in the dark. The princess could not stop thinking about it. She remembered every moment he had looked away, every step he had taken to avoid her. She wondered if she had done something wrong. She wondered if she looked strange to him. She wondered if he thought she was dangerous. No alien in her life had ever ignored her. It felt like a wound she could not explain. The next day, the queen noticed it herself. She stood at the top of the crystal balcony and watched Marcus walk through the hall, never lifting his eyes. The princess stood beside her, silent and tense. The queen's expression changed slowly, like a storm forming behind calm clouds. Why does this human refuse to look at you? The queen asked quietly. The princess did not answer. The queen watched longer. The human passed 3 guards too, advisors, and a group of nobles. But when he saw the princess standing in the distance, he turned sharply and took another hallway. The queen's jaw tightened. The court fell silent. The nobles waited for the queen's reaction. One advisor bowed and whispered, "Your Majesty, perhaps the human must be punished for disrespect." Another said, "Or maybe he hides fear." A third said softly, "Or maybe he hides something worse." The queen lifted one hand and everyone became silent again. That night, Marcus tried to sleep, but he could feel the weight of the palace pressing against him. He heard footsteps outside his door. He heard whispers. He felt eyes watching him even through the walls. Something was changing, and he could not stop it. At dawn, drums echoed through the palace. A royal command, a summons, a demand. The queen had ordered Marcus to stand before the throne. The palace shook with anticipation. The guards sharpened their weapons. The nobles gathered like hungry birds. The princess waited with a heart full of questions. The throne hall was bright with tall glowing pillars and floating banners that shimmered like stars. But the air felt heavy as Marcus entered with slow steps. Every alien eye followed him. The nobles sat in curved rows, their long robes brushing the floor. The guards stood like statues, gripping their weapons tighter than usual. The princess sat near the queen, her hands folded, her face calm but her eyes full of worry. Everyone waited for the truth, or a mistake, or a punishment. Marcus did not bow. He only stood still and kept his eyes low. The queen stared at him with a cold, unreadable expression. The court whispered behind fans, claws, and jeweled masks. Rumors spread faster than breath. Humans have no manners, one noble muttered. He avoids the princess because he thinks he is above her. Another said, no, he avoids her because he fears her curse. A third whispered. The word curse moved through the court like a silent scream. The princess heard it too. She lowered her gaze, and for a moment, she looked smaller, weaker, almost fragile. Marcus saw it from the corner of his eye, and a shadow crossed his face. But he still refused to look directly at her. The queen rose slowly from her throne, her crown glowing like a burning sun. Human, she said, her voice echoing across the hall. Why do you avoid my daughter? The hall became so silent that even breathing sounded loud. Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came out. The queen watched him closely. The guards tensed. The princess held her breath. But before Marcus could speak, an advisor stepped forward. Your Majesty, he said loudly, allow the court to speak what it has observed. The queen nodded once. The advisor turned to the nobles and declared, speak your thoughts. They did. One after another. He fears her beauty. He refuses to bow. He thinks humans are superior. He hides a secret insult. He brings shame to our queen. He curses the royal bloodline by looking away. He spreads disrespect through silence. The words grew sharper, louder, uglier. The princess clenched her hands, her markings dimming. Marcus remained still, like a stone in a storm. Then an elderly healer stood and spoke in a quiet voice. Perhaps, she said, the human avoids her because he sees something we do not. The court fell silent again. The queen narrowed her eyes. The healer continued. Humans notice things differently. They sense what others ignore. Maybe he sees something in the princess that no one speaks of. The princess stiffened. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears. She knew what the healer meant. Something she hid all her life. Something only a careful observer could notice. The queen looked at Marcus again. Is this true? She asked. Marcus swallowed, but he still did not answer. The queen raised her hand, signaling the guards to step forward. 2 guards moved closer to Marcus, ready to force him to speak, ready to drag him away if needed. But before they reached him, something unexpected happened. The princess stood. Everyone froze. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the hall like a bell. Let him speak, she said. The guards stopped. The queen stared at her daughter with surprise. The nobles leaned forward. Marcus finally lifted his head, not to look at the princess, but to face the queen. His voice was calm, steady, and low. I avoided her, he said, because I did not want the court to notice what I noticed. A wave of shock swept the room. The queen stepped closer. And what did you notice, human? Marcus hesitated, not from fear, but from respect. Then he spoke the words that made the hall tremble. She hides pain, and no one here sees it. The princess gasped softly. The guards exchanged confused looks. The nobles whispered in disbelief. The queen's eyes widened, not with anger, but with something deeper. For the first time, doubt. The court had expected an insult, but Marcus had given a truth sharper than any enemy, a truth that changed everything. The hall did not breathe after Marcus spoke. His words hung in the air like a blade, sharp, unexpected, and impossible to ignore. The princess sat frozen, her glowing markings dimming and brightening in nervous waves. The queen stared at Marcus with an expression no one in the palace had ever seen on her face: uncertainty. The nobles shifted in their seats, whispering behind jeweled hands. The guards looked confused, waiting for orders they did not understand. Marcus stood straight. His eyes still not meeting the princess's, he did not shake. He did not kneel. He simply waited. The queen slowly sat back on her throne, but her gaze never left him. "What pain do you claim my daughter hides?" the queen asked, her voice lower, heavier, no longer angry but demanding clarity. Marcus did not answer yet. Instead, he breathed slowly, like a man choosing words with care. The court leaned forward. The palace felt like it was holding its heartbeat. "I cannot say it here," Marcus replied. "Not in front of those who will twist it, poison it, or use it against her." Gasps fluttered through the room like startled birds. The queen lifted her hand, silencing everyone. "You speak boldly for a human," she said. "I speak carefully." Marcus answered. The queen studied him, this quiet human, this worker, this outsider who dared to speak like someone with honor. Then she stood again and declared, "The court is dismissed." Shock exploded across the room. Noble shouted, "This human must answer here. He hides disrespect." Another cried, "He lies to gain power." A third accused. The queen's voice cut through them like thunder. "Leave." No one disobeyed her, not even the proudest noble, not even the loudest advisor. One by one, they backed away, robes dragging, eyes burning with frustration and curiosity. The guards escorted them out, though they paused to glare at Marcus soon. Only 4 remained in the hall: the queen, the princess, Marcus, and one silent guard at the door. The air shifted, softer, heavier, more real. The queen stepped down from the throne, her cloak brushing the marble floor. She walked slowly toward Marcus, circling him like a creature trying to see his soul. "You avoided my daughter to protect her," she said. "Explain." Marcus finally looked not at the princess's eyes, but at her hands, delicate, perfect, but trembling. Not with fear, but with effort. "She hides weakness in her breath," Marcus said quietly. "She moves with grace, but her steps are measured, careful, controlled. She lowers her voice to hide strain. She holds her shoulders tense to stay upright. I saw it the first day I arrived." The princess's lips parted in shock. She had hidden it all her life. No alien ever noticed. No healer ever spoke of it. No noble ever cared. "How?" the queen whispered. "Humans watch differently," Marcus answered. "We learn to read pain because we survive it." The queen exchanged a long, silent look with her daughter. Something unspoken passed between them: fear, truth, memory. Then the queen asked the question the court had feared more than any insult. "What else did you see?" Marcus hesitated. The princess looked down, ashamed. The guard at the door shifted. Uneasily, "You want the truth," Marcus said. "All of it?" The queen nodded. Marcus breathed deeply. "She is strong," he said. "Stronger than anyone here knows. She hides her pain because she refuses to burden her people. She carries the throne in her spine and the weight of expectation in her lungs." The princess's eyes filled not with tears, but with something sharper. Recognition. Marcus continued, voice steady. "I looked away because if the court saw me noticing, they would see her weakness, and they would tear her apart for it." Silence filled the room again, different silence, deeper silence. The queen stepped back, shaken. The princess slowly lifted her eyes and looked at Marcus fully for the very first time. There was no anger, no confusion, only something soft and fragile, like trust beginning to grow. The queen spoke again, but her voice was changed. "Human," she said, "you will return tomorrow. We have more to speak about." Marcus nodded and turned to leave, but before he reached the door, the princess whispered, her voice trembling but brave. "Thank you." Marcus paused, but he still did not turn around. And that made the moment even stronger. Because the queen and the princess both realized this human did not seek favor. He did not seek reward. He did not seek power. He sought only dignity, and that made him dangerous and unnecessary. and unforgettable. The throne had been shaken. The next morning, the palace felt different. The halls were quieter, the guards more alert, and the nobles more restless. Rumors had grown overnight like vines twisting around every pillar. Some said the queen would punish the human. Some said she would reward him. Some whispered that the princess herself had spoken to him, which sounded impossible to those who believed she never lowered herself to acknowledge a servant. Marcus walked through the corridors again, but this time, eyes followed him for a new reason: fear mixed with curiosity. The aliens watched him not as a disrespectful outsider, but as someone who knew something they did not. Someone dangerous. Someone important. He still did not look toward the princess, though he sensed her presence near the balcony above. Her gaze followed him like a warm light through cold stone. The queen summoned him again, but not to the throne hall. Instead, he was led through a private passage, lined with ancient carvings of battles, coronations, and royal bloodlines. The guard escorting him did not speak. Marcus did not ask questions. He understood that silence was safer. At the end of the passage, a small chamber opened, filled with soft blue light. The queen stood beside a medical table, and beside her unexpectedly stood the royal healer. The princess sat on a cushioned seat, her posture straight, but her breathing controlled and shallow. The queen gestured for Marcus to step closer. "You said my daughter hides pain," the queen said. "Show us what you saw." Marcus did not touch the princess. Instead, he pointed gently. "Her shoulders," he said. "She holds them tense to control her balance." The healer frowned, watching closely. "Her steps," Marcus continued. "She places her feet carefully, like someone who fears a tremor." The princess lowered her eyes, cheeks warming. "Her breath," Marcus said, "softer now. She breathes shallow so others do not hear the strain." The healer suddenly gasped. "I never noticed," she whispered. The queen's face tightened, not with anger, but with worry. Marcus spoke again, slowly, respectfully. "She hides it because she does not want to appear weak. She hides it because she carries responsibility. She hides it because she believes her people need perfection." The princess's fingers curled tightly around the edge of her seat. Her voice was low and fragile when she spoke. "How did you see it when no one else did?" Marcus answered without hesitation. "Because humans learn to hide pain too." The room felt warmer, smaller, more human, even among aliens. The healer stepped forward and gently examined the princess's wrists. Her spine, her breathing. For the first time, she looked not for illness, but for effort, and she saw it. Truly saw it. The queen's voice trembled slightly as she asked, "Can it be treated?" The healer hesitated. "Perhaps," she said, "but only if she stops hiding it. Only if she rests. Only if her body is not forced to appear perfect." The words struck the room like silent thunder. The princess turned her head away ashamed. "I cannot appear weak," she whispered. Marcus shook his head. "Strength is not pretending," he said. "Strength is surviving." The queen looked at him sharply, because those were not the words of a servant. Those were the words of someone who understood burden. A long silence passed before the queen spoke again. "You avoided her because you feared the court would see what you saw." Marcus nodded. The queen exhaled slowly, a sound full of responsibility and regret. "You protected her reputation," she said, "by protecting her weakness." Marcus did not answer. He did not need to. The princess lifted her eyes and looked at Marcus directly, really looked, without fear, without pride, without the mask she had worn her whole life. "No one ever noticed," she said. "Not even my mother." The queen closed her eyes briefly. And in that moment, something shifted between the three of them: power, trust, truth. The queen turned to Marcus again. "You will stay in the palace," she declared. "You will advise us. You will help the healer understand what you see." Marcus stepped back slightly. "I am only a worker," he said. The queen shook her head. Not anymore. The guard at the door straightened, hearing the change in status. The princess breathed, a freer breath, a real breath. But outside, the chamber, the nobles waited. The advisors plotted. The guards whispered. Because if the human now stood close to the princess, then someone else would want him removed. And the danger was only beginning. The news spread through the palace faster than light. Marcus was no longer just a worker. He was now someone the queen listened to, someone allowed near the princess, someone the healer consulted. The nobles hated it. The advisors feared it. The guards did not understand it, and the princess, she thought about it more than she expected. Whispers filled the dining halls and training yards. A human advising the queen? He must be manipulating her. He wants power. He wants the princess. He wants the throne. None of it was true, but rumors did not need truth to grow. They only needed fear, and fear was everywhere. Marcus tried to continue his work quietly, but aliens followed. Him with sharp eyes, some blocked doorways. Some asked questions in mocking tones. Some accidentally bumped him, hoping to provoke him into disrespect. But he stayed calm, steady, silent. He had survived harsher places than a palace full of prideful aliens. The princess watched from a balcony as Marcus carried tools across the courtyard, ignoring the nobles who whispered openly. Her markings flickered with frustration. She had never felt the need to defend anyone before. No one had ever needed her to. Later that day, the queen called Marcus to a private council chamber. The room was round, with a glowing map of the kingdom floating. Above a crystal table. Only the queen, the princess, the healer, and 2 trusted guards were present. The door closed behind Marcus, sealing out the watching world. The queen spoke first. The court demands to know why you avoided my daughter, she said. They say you hide disrespect. They say you hide insult. They say you hide arrogance. Marcus looked around the room slowly, then spoke with quiet certainty. I hid something, he said. But it was not disrespect. The princess leaned forward, unable to look away. Marcus continued. I avoided her because if I looked at her too long, the court would realize I saw her pain. And once they saw her weakness, they would use it to break her. The healer inhaled sharply. The guards exchanged glances. The queen's eyes narrowed not with anger, but with realization. Marcus spoke again, his voice steady, honest, human. You all think she is fragile because of weakness. But she is fragile because she fights it alone. That is the strongest kind of strength. The princess's breath caught, her eyes shining, not with tears, but with shock. No alien had ever spoken to her like that. No alien had ever understood her like that. And no alien ever would. The queen stepped closer, studying Marcus as if seeing him for the first time. How did you learn to see pain in others? She asked. Marcus's expression changed just slightly. A shadow moved behind his eyes, a memory heavy enough to bend. Steel. I grew up with someone who hid pain, he said quietly. Someone who smiled so others would not worry. Someone who shook when no one was watching. The room stilled. The princess whispered, Your mother? Marcus nodded once. Did anyone help her? The queen asked. Marcus shook his head. No, they saw strength and called it pride. They saw silence and called it peace. They never looked close enough to notice the truth. The chamber felt smaller now, filled with something raw and human. The queen spoke softly. And did she survive? Marcus paused. No, he said. The healer looked down. The guards shifted uncomfortably. The princess stared at Marcus with new eyes that finally understood why he never looked at her. He wasn't avoiding her because she was royal. He wasn't avoiding her because she was alien. He was avoiding her because he recognized her struggle. And he refused to watch another life collapse under the weight of hidden pain. The queen placed a hand on the table. "Then you will help ensure my daughter does not share that fate," she said. Marcus nodded. But before anyone could speak further, a loud crash echoed from outside the chamber, shouting, footsteps. The door shook. A guard burst in, panting. "Your Majesty, there is revolt in the court." The queen stiffened. "Who leads it?" she demanded. The guard swallowed hard. "The nobles. They say a human threatens the throne." All eyes turned to Marcus. The princess stood, her markings burning bright. The queen lifted her chin, and the palace prepared for a storm. Sound of shouting spread through the palace like thunder rolling through stone. The queen moved toward the chamber doors, but the guard blocked her path with a shaking hand. "Your Majesty, please," he said. "The nobles have gathered in the great hall. They say you are blinded. They say the human twists your judgment. They demand he be removed at once." The princess stepped forward, her voice sharp with anger. "Removed? For what crime?" The guard lowered his head, for noticing what they failed to see. Those words burned more than any weapon. Marcus did not move. He stood still, knowing he was the center of a storm he never asked for. The queen looked at him, her expression unreadable, but her eyes carried something heavier, responsibility mixed with fear. "We must go," she said. "If we do not face them now, they will grow bold." The group walked through the private corridors, the princess walking beside Marcus for the first time, not ahead, not above, but beside. Guards surrounded them, not to contain Marcus, but to protect him. That alone showed how much had changed. As they neared the great hall, the noise grew louder. Dozens of nobles filled the room, their robes glittering, their faces twisted with pride and outrage. Advisors pointed toward the doors, shouting accusations. High commanders slammed staffs against the marble floor. This was not debate. It was rebellion. The queen entered, and the hall fell into a tense, hateful quiet. Behind her stood the princess. Beside the princess stood Marcus. Gasps flickered through the crowd. One noble stepped forward, voice shaking with fury. "A human stands at the side of royalty. This insults our bloodline." Another shouted, "He poisons the throne with lies." A third pointed and spat the words, "He avoids the princess because he despises her." Marcus finally lifted his head. He looked not at the nobles, but at the princess. For the first time, he met her eyes, and the hall froze. Her markings glowed softly, not from pain, but from something unfamiliar, strength shared, not carried alone. Queen raised her hand. "Enough." Her voice cracked through the hall like a blade of ice. "You accuse this human of disrespect, yet you failed to see what he saw. You claim loyalty, yet you overlook the suffering of your future ruler." The nobles shifted, uncertain. The queen continued, her voice rising. "You said he fears her. You said he insults her. You said he hides arrogance." She stepped back, gesturing to Marcus. But he hid only one thing: truth. The nobles murmured angrily, but none dared interrupt. The queen pointed to her daughter. "Look at the princess. Look closely. Look without pride blinding you." The nobles stared, but they saw nothing. Only the healer stepped forward. She bowed and spoke clearly. "The human is right. The princess hides a strain in her body. She battles it in silence. And we who should have seen it did not." A ripple of shame passed through the hall, but pride is a stubborn enemy. One noble shouted, "Even if it is true, humans have no place advising the throne." Another screamed, "Remove him, or we withdraw our loyalty." Silence followed. The queen did not answer. The princess did not. Her voice rang out, steady and strong. "If you withdraw loyalty because a human showed more care than you, then your loyalty was never to the throne, only to yourselves." The nobles fell silent, stunned. Never in her life had the princess spoken against them. Never had her voice held power. Marcus stood still, eyes steady, but inside he felt something shift. She was no longer hiding, not her breath. Not her pain. Not her strength. The queen looked across the hall. "Choose," she said. "Stand with truth, or stand outside these walls forever." The hall did not roar this time. It went silent, terrifyingly silent. Slowly. Nobles bowed. Advisors lowered their heads. Guards knelt. Not because of fear, but because they finally understood. The throne had changed. The princess had changed. The court had been exposed, and a human quiet, observant, ordinary had forced them to see what they refused to see. Marcus looked at the queen. The queen looked at him, but the princess, she looked at Marcus as though seeing the first person in her life who didn't need her title to respect her. The hall stayed silent because every alien in the room wondered the same thing. If a human could change the throne with only truth, what would happen next? The great hall slowly emptied, but the silence remained like a soft echo in the air. The nobles backed away, humbled. The advisors avoided eye contact. Even the guards looked different, as if they were seeing the world through new eyes. The queen stood tall, but there was a calmness in her stance now, not hardness. The princess breathed deeply, her chest rising without strain for the first time in days. Marcus stood beside her, still steady, still simple, still human. The queen turned toward Marcus and said, "Your truth saved this throne from blindness." Her voice was strong, but softer than before. Marcus shook his head gently. The truth was already here. Someone only needed to speak it. The princess looked at him with quiet gratitude, her glowing markings settling into a warm, gentle light. She felt lighter, not because her condition vanished, but because she no longer carried it alone. For the first time in her life, she did not feel like a symbol. She felt like a person. The queen dismissed the guards and healer, leaving only Marcus and the princess with her in the vast hall. She spoke again. "My daughter will need someone who can see what others ignore. Someone who will tell truth even when it is difficult. Someone who is not blinded by tradition." She paused, studying Marcus carefully. "Will you stay in this palace, not as a servant, but as her advisor?" Marcus did not answer immediately. He looked at the princess, not with fear, not with duty, but with understanding. "I will stay," he said softly, "only if she wishes it too." This time, the princess did not hesitate. "I do," she said, "because you are the first person who ever looked at me and saw more than a crown." Those words landed gently, yet they shook more deeply than any rebellion. Days passed, and the palace changed. The princess walked without hiding her careful steps. The healer worked with her quietly. The queen allowed rest without judgment. The court watched, confused at first, then accepting. For the first time in generations, the royal family felt human. And strangely, the people respected them more for it. Marcus became a quiet presence in the palace, never loud, never proud, but always observant. When the princess stumbled, he pretended not to see, letting her dignity stay intact. When she strained to speak in long ceremonies, he positioned himself nearby, so she could rest her breath without attention. When she felt overwhelmed, he spoke. Simple words that grounded her. "You are not weak," he reminded her. "You are strong because you keep going." The princess began to smile, small, rare, but real. Even the queen noticed it. One evening, the queen invited Marcus and the princess to the balcony overlooking the glowing city. The sky shimmered with twin moons, and the wind carried soft music from distant towers. The queen placed her hand on the railing and said, "Once, our people believed humans were lesser. Now I see humans simply carry a different kind of strength." Marcus replied, "Strength is not always loud." The princess added, "Sometimes strength looks like silence." They stood together, three figures from different worlds, sharing the same quiet truth. Soon word spread beyond the palace. Across the empire, aliens spoke of the human who defended the princess not with weapons, not with rebellion, but with understanding. Some questioned it, some resented it, but most admired it, because in a galaxy full of power, humanity's greatest weapon was compassion. One night, as Marcus prepared to leave the council chamber, the princess stopped him with a soft voice. "Marcus," she said, "why did you really avoid looking at me all those days?" Marcus paused, then answered with honesty, "Because if I looked at you too long, I would care, and caring meant responsibility." The princess's markings glowed gently. "And now?" she asked. Marcus met her eyes calm, steady, unafraid. "Now," he said, "I do not look away." The princess smiled, slow and sincere. In that moment, the last barrier between them dissolved, not romantic, not dramatic, but something deeper. Recognition. Partnership. Respect. Outside, the palace was quiet. Inside, a new future formed, one where a human stood not as servant, not as threat, but as equal. And across the throne, across the court, across the empire, no one doubted it anymore. Humans were not weak. Humans were not lesser. Humans were the unseen apex in places where strength was misunderstood.